All right, folks, welcome to another episode. I guess we're going to call this Spun Up. That's what people keep telling me that they like as a name for this. And really, what we're planning on doing is continuing to talk about leadership, tactics, firearms, hunting, whatever fits your fancy. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. And because of some of that feedback, this particular leadership episode that we're going to do here, I'm going to call this Leadership Must Have the Right People. And one of the fellas that I have a lot of respect for, Colonel Lynn Ashley, called me after we put out the other leadership podcast that went out a few weeks ago. And we just had a very frank conversation about leadership and what it means to him and what he's seen since he's gotten out of the military. He retired as a colonel, went into business, and he's had some interesting interactions while doing that. So today, bear with me in the video. I guess you'll see I've got a lot of notes here that I'm going to refer to. And as I go through this, hopefully there'll be more discussion that will inspire, where you folks can email us and let us know what some of your questions are and what we can talk about. We've been getting some really cool emails, and I'm excited about this one because I talked to my buddy Lynn, but I'm excited about some of the others because we have some of our listeners and viewers out there that are getting in touch with us to ask those questions. Some of you are asking questions that I probably am not going to answer, but some of you definitely are asking good leadership questions, good firearms or tactics questions, hunting questions, whatever it might be. So without further ado, let's talk about what Lynn Ashley and I talked about. Now remember, our backgrounds are military. So Lynn spent about 30 years in the Army, was a Special Forces officer, and a very respected man. Not just by me, but by other special operations dudes out there. So that says a lot about somebody if they've been able to build that credibility and to step up to that level there. I hope he doesn't listen to this because I don't want him to hear that. But one of the things he said right out of the gate, he told me, he said, if you take care of the right people, they're going to accomplish the mission. Man, I guess I could stop there. Take care of the right people, they're going to make it happen. But who are those right people? And what I would say is, first of all, you have to have the right people, and then those people have to make the right decisions and step up and make those calls for you. So sounds simple, right? Sounds pretty simple. Have the right people and listen to the right people. One of the things we also talked about that I found interesting to hear coming from him, he said that many of the senior leaders in business and corporations, they don't even know how to classify leaders because maybe they haven't been exposed to what a real leader is. Well, what the heck does that mean? How do you classify these leaders? Well, in the military, it's pretty simple. They're good or they're bad. And we had a lot of leaders to look at. In the military, every 2 years, leadership positions rotate. So you get the new person in there, and then you get a chance to see if they're a good leader, a great leader, a bad leader, a self-serving, malicious. There's a lot of different types of leaders that get, that we got exposure to. What I would say is I probably learned just about as much from the bad leaders as I did from the good leaders. So from the good leaders, I was exposed to what I want to emulate. Wow, this guy or this gal was a great or a good leader. I want to emulate what they're doing. Then I also was able to look at the bad leaders, poor leaders, malicious leaders, bad leaders, whatever category you want to call them. To me, a bad leader and malicious leader are two different leaders. A bad leader is somebody that's just a poor leader. They're not out to do anything to cause injury to their people. They're just a bad leader. So because of that, maybe they're making bad decisions. A malicious leader is somebody who is going to make those bad decisions, and all they're worried about is stepping on your neck and my neck to get where they're going. One of the other things that Lynn said was that some of these leaders that he's dealt with in business, they don't even know what real true leadership is. Or they're very misguided. They have a misguided sense of what that is from and what they've been exposed to. So where did they get that misguidance? They just haven't been exposed to leaders. In business, you can have that happen. So let me continue there. One of the things he also said was, if you have a person that doesn't want to step up to the plate and lead or be a good follower, which is, I don't know, I'd say that's equally as important, then some of those people, they're going to vote with their feet. And I like the way he said that. They're going to vote with their feet. They're going to leave. They're going to leave if they don't like the situation they're in, or they can't stand up for the task. The opposite is true as well. If you're a performer working for non-performers, you may need to bail for a job or position that allows you to be a performer and successful. Obviously, I'm reading these notes that I've got to myself, and these aren't exactly what Lynn said, but very, very, very close to what he said. Once again, listening to that senior leader that he was, it's awesome that you know that a guy like that was in charge, and this is the thought process that's going through his head. He's not saying kiss the ring. He's saying this is what needs to happen. What about if leaders are absent? They get into these positions, let's say you're a president or CEO of a corporation. To me, that should be a leadership position. To some, I believe it's not. But if it is a leadership position and you're not there for your people, you're absent from your duties as a leader, shame on you. We have got to be there for our people. That's what leadership's all about. If leadership to you is you getting where you want to go, then you're not leading. I don't know what you call that, but self-serving, whatever. Leading is taking people that are following you or leading you and helping them accomplish that task at hand or that mission, that overarching mission. So one of the questions that we often get is, well, what if we can't fire people? Okay. If you're in a position where you can't fire people that need to be fired, you might want to move on. It's got to be done. It's got to happen. If you have people that are not performing, they've got to be fired so that you can get the right person in that position, or maybe they get demoted. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But really now, look at society and look at the jobs that are available. Man, it's a performance market. So we've got some people that decided they're just going to get welfare, so they don't even count because they're not a contender for this. But those of us that are trying to be competitive, we've got to continue to be competitive. And if you're a poor performer or you're slacking, get rid of that person. Or if I'm working with them, I'm just going to try to bypass that person. And that's another thing that we as leaders have got to look at. That in schools they call it tenure. So a teacher's been there longer than everybody else, but they suck, but they get promoted because they have tenure. That is not a recipe for success. So we want to have people that are actually performers. That's how we're going to be successful. So one of the other things that Lynn said, and I found this really interesting, he said, some organizations that have poor leaders, some of these poor leaders are left in place so people won't see the company as weak or defective. Well, we see it, folks. So if you're in a company that has a defective leadership mechanism in it, everybody's going to see that. So don't think that you're hiding that from anybody. You can just see it in the performance. And some of these companies that we're talking about are companies that we're very familiar with, whether it's in the apparel industry for tactical apparel or firearms, optics, whatever it might be. We've got some pretty good insight to that. The other thing that gives us insight is Lynn deals with leaders throughout all kinds of businesses on a daily basis, and I end up doing quite a bit of that. But I deal more with law enforcement, military, special operations type leaders. But every now and again, I do get to sit down with leaders of large businesses, or even maybe not a large business, or say a farmer. Is that a business? Heck yeah, it's a business. And they got to be able to lead. They've got to be able to manage their time and manage their people's time. And then they've got to inspire those people. And one of the things that, and I don't know if I've got this as a note, if I've got it, and I might say it again later, but we got to lead from the front. Be a great example for your people and lead from the front, and then you will attract the right people to your business. Okay, one of the other things that we talked about was how sometimes some of these European companies that we deal with, it's bad etiquette to fire someone, maybe change their positions, but not fire them. So we kind of agreed that that's common in Europe, but I would also say that it's becoming more and more common in the US, and that's not good. We've got to be able to fire those folks or move them into a position of less influence if they're not performing. So cultural norms, if that's your norm, you got to change that if you want to be successful. If you have poor organizational norms, you may need to overhaul your entire organization. I'm just going to use a good example of that. Ron Cohen at Sig Sauer. Ron Cohen came in and he shook it up and he got rid of the dead weight. And you can see how Sig is just absolutely crushing it these days. Another company, Loophole, Bruce Pettit, he came in. Hey, the company was okay, but you got a guy like Bruce that shows up. He walks the walk, he talks the talk, he's a hunter, he's a fisherman, he's a shooter, and most importantly, he's a leader. Both him and Ron Cohen, they are leaders. I've heard some folks say, oh, well, yeah, Ron Cohen, man, if you're not working hard enough, he'll fire you. Yep. That's awesome. To me, that's what needs to happen. So, okay, so what about past performance? Should past performance be a reason to keep someone? Now, in the military, what if you got somebody that's a war hero? You keep them around just there because they're a war hero. Here's what I would say. And if you're that person, now it's kind of different. If somebody gets injured and we keep them around in a position that they can do with the injuries that they sustained while serving their country and working for our unit, that's a different story. We're absolutely going to do that because we can get their mind and still use that and draw all the expertise that they have from that. You don't have to be an able-bodied person. Don't think that. Just think about how good that person is as a leader. And if their past performance is something that we want to have and be able to look back to, then absolutely keep that person. But I would also say, I would argue that you as that individual or you as that leader, you should want your people and you to perform every day, all day, tomorrow. If we want our future to be successful, we got to perform today, tomorrow, a week ago, 2 weeks from now. When folks reach burnout, let them go and put fresh, hot blood in that position. It's the way it is. If you're doing this in the military, you can't have people that won't conduct the mission or won't be, visit violence of action on that objective because maybe they've had some incidents where they've gotten scared or maybe they've been hurt. They can't keep up, which that's very, very true in special operations. Working with guys that have injuries and they start taking drugs because they want to fight through those injuries. In a way, you kind of got to admire that. But as a leader, we've got to be able to pull that person back because one, we love them and we say, hey, dude, let's get you fixed. And once you're fixed, we'll put you back in the fight. But until you physically are fixed, we're going to pull you out. They may not like it, but if you truly care about your people, fix them and then get them back in the fight. If they're out of the fight, then sorry, but you might have to move on and find somebody else to replace that position. Another option is to move them into a position where they have less influence. I kind of talked about that already, but a place where they cause the least amount of harm, and then they won't get someone killed or also they won't hurt motivation. I believe if that happens, pay cuts are also necessary if needed. Don't be afraid to, if somebody's not performing at that level, then take that pay back down where it needs to be as well. So I want you to think about this question when I ask it and be honest to yourself. Have you created an environment where no one can be fired? If so, I'm going to tell you right now, I promise you there's no chance of success. If you can't hire and fire people, hire slowly, fire very, very fast. If you can't do that, I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to have success. You look at the highest tiers of military units, they hire, it's a heck of a process to go through to get hired. But if you don't perform, you're fired because there's another 100 dudes waiting there to take your position. This one might hit you a little bit funny. Are you looking over your shoulder? Are you worried about competitors? Should we be worried about competitors? I would say, yes, we should, but we also have to be able to look at the future, be innovative, be motivated, be that leader in the industry, whether that industry is hunting down and capturing, killing bad guys, being in the military, or that industry is making guns, that industry is making pants, that industry is making bicycles, whatever it is, you can't see the future until you turn your back on the past. So, yep, worry about your competitors, but you need to fix your problems and look to the future so that you get there faster than your competitors. Now, I've only got a couple more notes here that I want to talk about. One is, are you scared to get fired? And I'll tell you a little war story. There I was the day that I was going to retire from the unit. I was putting my Class A uniform on in my office, getting ready to go down there, and something popped in my mind, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. I said, I've got to get this done so I don't get fired. So at that point, I'd been in the unit, 15 and a half years or something like that. It's the day I'm retiring, and I'm worried about getting fired. Is that negative? I don't believe it is. I think it puts the fire in your belly or under your butt, wherever you happen to need it, and you focus on performing the mission. So here's the notes I've got on that. Scared to get fired. Is this bad? I don't believe so. We should always want to perform. If the pressure is too much, find another job. I believe that. There are many who will gladly take your high performance position. Like I said already, there's people standing ready to charge. It's this fear of is this fear really of getting fired, or is it the fear of letting other people down? And I would say that it's a little bit of both, but your fear of getting fired is because you're going to let other people down. How about fear of not accomplishing the mission? This was bred into our operators. We're going to succeed at that mission. And even when I conduct training, I make sure that I finish on a high note of success so that when we leave that training environment, we have confidence. We have the competence, but do we have the confidence when we go into the next objective that we're going to perform like we need to? So I try to inspire people that they will accomplish the mission, because part of accomplishing that mission is just having that positive attitude. That fear of letting people down, nothing wrong with that. And how about this one? You want to perform for your respected leaders. That can't be bad. If you're one of those leaders, don't you want your people to respect you and want to perform for you? They're not gonna want to let you down. I had a team leader, John Hale, and when we screwed up, he took the blame. And when we were successful, he let us take that success. So what do you think we wanted to do for him? We wanted to perform absolutely the best we possibly could. He was an unbelievably great man and great leader. So be that respected leader. So last thing I want to say is get back to this firing. So maybe your firing is, and this is something that my wife and I talked about, maybe firing is not your problem. Maybe your problem is with your hiring process. So maybe your HR, they need to get fired, or maybe they need to be calibrated so they're hiring the right people. What are your leadership goals, your business goals? What are your personal goals? Are they, if you're the leader of that organization, is your HR department or whoever's hiring your folks to come on board or fire those folks, are they on board with what your plan is? If they're not, either get them on board or you need to change that. How about ChickfilA? So when I go to ChickfilA, they got great people and they've got a whole tribe of teenagers there, and they're awesome. And sometimes they're almost too nice, but they're getting it done. They're really trying to learn. So why does that work so well at Chick-fil-A? Is it because they only hire, I don't know, white kids, black kids, Yellow kids? No, they hire everybody. They hire everybody that fits into that position and is willing to get trained. They take their mid-level trainers, or their mid-level managers, and they send them to special training. I believe it's in Georgia. So there's an organization that has stood up for what they believe in, for one. Two, they have absolutely hired and fired the right people. So if they hired the right ones, I mean, so where are all the poor performers when you show up to Chick-fil-A? They're not there, so maybe they keep them in the back, chained up. I don't know, but I think what they've done is they've fired them, and they're no longer part of Chick-fil-A, and they're working at McDonald's or Burger King. If you go into one of those places, holy buckets, there is no training going on at either of those joints. So Chick-fil-A, perfect example. You know, if I was going to pick somebody to hire people for me in the military, I'd pick Chick-fil-A, because we can take those young teenagers, boys and girls, and if they're motivated and and I'm not saying they got to be super smart. We're going to teach them what they need to know. They don't have to have a lot of experience, because we're going to teach them how to do this. So get the right people, hire the right people, and fire the right people, and you're going to be better off. All right, so get that process nailed down. So once again, thanks to Lynn for calling and shaming the old crusty sergeant major into talking about some of this stuff. But it was very good to hear. One, we have a lot of great conversations. We've done a little bit of hunting together as well. We do some shooting together, and we always have great, or I should say, he always has very good insight to some of the stuff that I like to talk about too. So leadership, firearms, whatever it might be. So once again, take care of the right people, and they're going to accomplish the mission. Straight from Lynn Ashley. And also, one of the other takeaways I want you to remember is vote with your feet. If you can't do what you need to do at the job that you're at, then maybe you need to move as well. And if you start leading courageously like you should be, maybe some other people will vote with their feet because they can't keep up with what you're trying to accomplish, being successful, accomplishing the mission. All right, we got more of these planned, but that's all I got for today. If you have comments, please send them to Lamb, at vikingtactics.com. And we read every one of them. We don't answer every one of those emails, because now we are getting quite a slew of emails. But if you have ideas of what you'd like to hear us talk about, whether it's leadership, I'm not really going to talk politics, I guess, but I do want to continue to talk about leadership, firearms, tactics, hunting, whatever it might be. So that's all we got for today. Last but not least, God bless America.